In 2016, California wife and mother Sherry Papini disappeared for 22 days. When she was found, she told authorities a detailed account of being kidnapped and tortured. Years later, in a stunning twist, Papini pled guilty to making false statements about what happened to her, setting off a media firestorm. Now, for the first time, Sherry Papini is telling her side of the story and revealing shocking new information. Sherry Papini, Caught in a Lie, an ID documentary event, Monday, May 26th at 9 on ID. Set your DVR. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 278 of the True Crime All the Time podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. How about you?
I'm doing very, very well.
Good.
I'm down 14 pounds.
Oh, yeah?
And I'm feeling good about that, man. I'm trying hard. I'm eating, for the most part.
Yeah.
You know, right. You and I had pizza tonight. It's kind of my treat for the week when you come.
I enjoyed it.
And you enjoy it because you get a free meal.
Every time we record because I get a free meal.
Yeah, I'm not paid for a meal in 5 years.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I do too.
I like that about you. So let's go ahead and give our Patreon shout outs. We had Monica Bartolini.
Hey, Bartolini.
Anna Warner jumped out at her highest level.
Thank you, Anna.
Elaine Frakes.
Hey, Elaine.
Rebecca Waring.
Well, thank you, Rebecca.
Dan.
Good old Dan.
Ashley Morrow jumped out at her highest level.
Hey, thanks, Ashley.
Donna Pearson.
Appreciate that, Donna.
Roberta Svedich.
What's up, Savedich?
Justin Helgerson.
Hey, Helgerson.
Melissa Searer.
Hey, Melissa.
Crystal Reese.
Well, thank you, Crystal.
Jenna Rose.
Well, what's going on, Jenna?
Laura Bolvin.
Boven.
Lauren Adamowski.
Oh, hey, Adamowski.
And last but not least, Kat Friedman.
Good old cat.
Then if we go back into the vault, Gibbs, this week we selected Kay Manop.
Well, thank you, Kay.
Yeah, so we appreciate that new support and the long-term support. For PayPal, we had donations from Ellie N's Piano School.
Hey, appreciate that, Ellie.
So we got that going for us.
Absolutely, yeah.
Lynn Hammond.
Hey, Lynn.
And Adam Mottershead.
Well, it got to be a Mottershead.
Well, got to be.
I feel like somebody from Boston would say, instead of mother's head, it'd be motto's head.
Oh, I got that.
Yeah.
I got that. Maybe that's where the name came from.
Yeah.
Thought that's where you were headed. Gibbs, right now on Unsolved, we have a great episode out. We're headed to Detroit to talk about the 2010 mysterious death of Joanne Romaine.
And it really is mysterious. So make sure you jump on over there and listen to that one.
Yeah, it's so mysterious that it's really kind of hard to give too many of the details because we don't want to, give anything away.
Yeah.
We want people to hear it unfold and all of that. But yeah, definitely check that out. All right, buddy. Are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time?
I'm ready.
So we are going international to talk about Marc Dutroux. This was a suggestion that came up recently in a voicemail. When I looked into it, I thought, yep, very interesting. It's a case we should definitely do. But there was also so much information that it turned out to be a two-parter. There's just no way to tell this story in one episode. Couldn't be done.
So should I use my French accent? I mean, it's Belgium, but Belgium's right next door to France.
So you've got what? Finnish, some German speaking, I'm sure some French, but
yeah,
I don't know.
We
Use whatever you want.
I will.
But this Marc Dutroux case remains one of Belgium's most notorious criminal trials. Marc Dutroux's crimes against children shocked the country. The public despised him, Gibbs, so much that over a third of Belgians with the last name Dutroux legally changed their names.
I can imagine so.
This is like the episode where Elaine was dating the guy named Joel Rifkin.
Yeah.
And she wanted him to change his name. But, when we get into it, people are going to see why. There was also further outrage at the conduct of judges and prosecutors in the case. So in this first part 1 of the Marc Dutroux episodes, we'll discuss his early life and crimes, his known victims, how he was finally arrested, and some of the shocking witness testimony. Now, I do want to say, a lot of the cases that we do are graphic, they're disturbing. This one's up there.
It really is.
As far as the level of graphic details, there's just no way around it. Marc Dutroux was a Belgian serial killer and child rapist. In 1989, he was convicted of 5 sexual assaults and sentenced to 13 years in prison. He only served 3 years. Over the next 4 years, he kidnapped and raped young girls, some of whom he murdered. He had several accomplices, including his own wife. The case led to speculation about inefficiency and corruption in Belgian law enforcement and politics. The public denounced the police for failing to pursue leads and ignoring witnesses. So, like we said, we're headed to Belgium and we're going to give the facts of the case. But I think just from what I said there, you can draw parallels to cases in any country.
Sure.
People being let out maybe before they should have been let out. Police being accused of not following up on things that they should have, or, ignoring certain aspects.
And we also know it frustrates the general public and the victim's family.
Sure.
When they see that happening, or when they assume that's happening.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Whether it's real or, police are giving off that optic.
Right.
That they're not doing this or that. But I think that's the thing we found out in the Saeed Hanai case. If you remember that, in a country like Iran, the parallels were there. And so, to me, yes, there are differences in different countries and things like that. But for the most part, true crime is true crime. And you're going to see a lot of parallels no matter where you go. Let's start out with a little bit of early life on Dutroux. Marc Dutroux was born on November 6, 1956 in Ixelles, Belgium. His parents are Victor and Janine. They both worked as teachers. He was the oldest of 5 children. Now, he later reported that his parents beat him when he was a child. Victor and Janine divorced in 1971, and Marc left home. He became a drifter, and he performed sex work to make money. You and I talk about sex workers quite a bit.
We do.
Unfortunately, sex workers often end up being the victims of violent crimes, but for the most part, we are talking about women. But obviously, men are involved in sex work as well.
Of course, yeah.
At the age of 20, Dutroux married a woman whose name is only listed as Francois D. They had 2 children together. His former wife reported that he beat her and that he regularly had affairs. Not something that a man really wants known about him, right? You don't want to be known as that guy. You shouldn't be that guy. Obviously, Gibbs, she's not painting a very flattering picture, right, of Marc. And, if you're an abuser and if you're a guy who steps out and has a lot of affairs, well, people are not going to have great things to say about you.
Why would they?
No, because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
Dutroux, like many killers, started off by committing petty crimes. And then his crimes gradually escalated in seriousness over the years. He worked as part of a car theft ring and earned enough money to buy a few properties in Belgium. In 1979, he was convicted of theft, violent mugging, drug dealing, and trading in stolen cars.
So a lot of serious crimes there.
Yeah, those are serious for sure. Now, we know that his crimes are going to be much more serious as we go along. But again, another parallel. This is something you often see in serial killers, especially.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem to matter what country you're in. People's crimes escalate, and the seriousness of their crimes escalates over the years until eventually they get to the point where, they become a serial killer.
Yep.
And then even when they do, their murders escalate.
They do. Yeah.
Right? How many times have we talked about that?
Many times.
To get that high, to get whatever it is that, is satiating what they have, they're craving. I don't know how else to say it, Gibbs.
Yeah, I mean, they're like any addict, right? They're chasing that next high, that next buzz, whatever, right? They need to have it.
And not just the next one, almost like a grader.
Yeah.
Taking them to a higher level. Dutroux and his first wife separated in the early 1980s. He married his mistress, Michelle Martin. At this point, Dutroux was an electrician and Michelle Martin was an elementary school teacher. She and Marc had 3 children together. Dutroux, Michelle Martin, and an accomplice named Jean van Peteghem worked together to kidnap several young girls in 1985. So this is his mistress. She happens to be an elementary school teacher, but yet becomes part of this plan to kidnap young girls.
Something wrong with that.
Something very wrong. Now, the main account of his crimes comes from a 2004 Belgian news article with the help of Google Translate, as well as his Wikipedia page. Dutroux's first kidnapping victim was an 18-year-old girl named Axel D. She was studying medicine at college. On Saturday, December 14th, 1985, she took a train from Brussels to Charleroi. In her December 18th police report, she said that she had a test on Tuesday and wanted to study for that. She told her parents she was going to study all day on Saturday and wasn't going to come home until Sunday afternoon. But on Saturday afternoon, she didn't feel like studying anymore, so she left school to go home that evening. But she didn't call her parents to let them know that she was coming. At the Charleroi station, she took the bus to Nélines, where she lived. When she got off the bus, she still had a pretty long walk home. She noticed a dirty white van following her. The van passed her, and she saw a man get out near an electricity cabin on the road. He went behind the van where she couldn't see him. And then as she walked past this van, all of a sudden the back doors flung open. One man pulled her inside the van, and another pushed her to the back. The men told her they were going to demand 400,000 francs from her parents because their friend had a rare vascular disease and needed surgery in the U.S. They put masking tape over her eyes and took her to a house. This house was a property owned by Marc Dutroux on 128 Philippeville, the same house that he would later use to kidnap victims in 1995 and 1996. So these folks locked Axel up for the next 24 hours. She was repeatedly raped by the 2 men. They fed her juice, candy, and chocolate. According to the Belgian news, during one of the rapes, her attacker told her that he had taken courses on law and explained the Belgian detention system. Another attacker claimed to be a former member of the military and an expert in martial arts. He said he was part of a gang with 2 gang leaders, one Italian, one crazy, and one stupid. Okay, that's a strange quote because you said there were 2 gang leaders.
Exactly.
But now you've subdivided it into 3 different things. Now, what you could be referring to is one of them is Italian and one is also either crazy or stupid and the other one is the other. But I found it very strange that you're listing out 3 different things after you've basically said there's 2 people.
Exactly. Yeah. It's kind of definitely strange. Well, the fact that they got 2 gang leaders, that's a problem already.
Tough.
Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Tough to have two people leading at the same time. It rarely works. It's the reason why you don't have two head coaches of a basketball team or a football team or any type of team, really. There's one head coach. You can have assistant coaches and things like that.
Yeah.
There's one president. There's one prime minister. There's one, a leader is a leader. It's kind of a singular type word. On Sunday, August 15th, they dropped her off near her parents' home. They had stolen 3,000 francs from her. So terrible ordeal, right, that this young woman went through. The next year, February 3rd, 1986, 20-year-old Jean Van Peteghem confessed that he was one of the three kidnappers. I think he confessed, Gibbs, because he found it pretty hard to deny his guilt because the police found Axel's pencil case in his home.
Kind of hard to argue that.
Well, the ages are close, right? He was 20, she was 18. But if you can't show that you know this person, which I'm sure he couldn't, he didn't know this person at all, then what explanation can you come up with that would help explain in a valid way why this pencil case was found in your house? And obviously she would come forward and say, didn't know this guy.
Exactly. Don't know who he is.
He also said his two accomplices were Marc Dutroux and an unknown man. But later that day, he changed his story. And he said that the third accomplice was actually Michelle Martin, who drove the van. And it was due to his confession that police were able to solve a series of rapes that occurred in 1985. Again, Gibbs, I want to go back to this Michelle Martin. This type of thing has come up in a number of cases. You can think Bernardo, Homolka, where, okay, did these women really want to do this? Were they pressured into doing it? Did they just go along with what their partner wanted them to do? They had recently married. This was an elementary school teacher who was somehow talked in, or maybe she was gung-ho, I don't know, into kidnapping multiple women and allowing her husband to participate in the rape of these young women.
Yeah, you want to know what's going on in her head. Why did she agree to allow that to happen? Unless she's just as evil as they are.
Well, it's always a possibility because I never discount the fact that women can be just as evil as men. It doesn't happen as often. We know that, but that possibility does exist. Van Peteghem said that he met Dutroux in March of 1985. He had just left the army and he was going to marry a woman, his childhood sweetheart, who was the mother of his child. This woman, Patricia, knew Marc Dutroux and regularly babysat his oldest child. Van Peteghem and Patricia moved in together in March, but separated a week later. And then he moved in with Dutroux. The Belgian news wrote, the penniless, not too intelligent Van Peteghem was the ideal assistant for Marc Dutroux.
So pretty much saying the poor and
not too bright
made the best sidekick.
Well, let's face it. I think oftentimes, not going to say all the time, but oftentimes the lower someone's IQ is, or the less intelligent they are, the more easily manipulated they are by others, especially if you're dealing with a master manipulator. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. You know what, folks? Stress shows up in all kinds of ways. And in a world that's telling you to do more, sleep less, and grind all the time, here's your reminder to take care of yourself, do less, and maybe try some therapy. And that's where BetterHelp comes in. I've personally used BetterHelp and found it to be an amazing service. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera. If you don't want to, you also don't have to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy. Give it a try and see if online therapy can help lower your stress. BetterHelp has counselors to help you deal with all kinds of different issues. And True Crime All the Time listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/TCAT. That's BETTERHELP.com/TCATT. You know, I feel pretty young at heart, but I'm getting close to 50, and soon I'll be facing the same issues that many Americans over 50 face. AARP advocates for you and offers financial and job resources, fraud protection help, information on joining local volunteer groups, and so much more. I'm an AARP member. AARP members enjoy access to hundreds of benefits, discounts, and social programs. They have social benefits such as financial planning, retirement, and social security resources, family caregiving support. And don't forget about the AARP magazine delivered to your door with news, interviews, and articles relevant to you. You can also save on average 61% on prescription drugs not covered by Medicare and up to 15% off meals at participating restaurants. Try the benefits for yourself. Go to aarp.org/TCAT to join for just $12 for your first year. With automatic renewal, you'll get a second membership for free, plus AARP the magazine and a free gift. That's aarp.org/TCAT. The two started out committing petty thefts together, but it soon escalated into violent sexual crimes, and XLD was not the only victim. On January 31st, 1985, Dutroux and an accomplice abducted 18-year-old Catherine B. while she was walking alone. They dragged her into a car, held a knife to her throat, and put tape over her eyes. Catherine reported that one of her kidnappers raped her in the car and told her, "Don't get married because what you feel now is marriage." They fed her candy and an apple. Gibbs, it makes my stomach turn to think that a rapist, someone who is sexually violating a woman, would say to her, "Don't get married because what you feel now is marriage." That is not marriage.
It is definitely not marriage.
It's the opposite of what marriage should be. They kidnapped her just after 5 p.m. They raped her. They took photographs of her, and then they kicked her out of the car at 9:30 p.m. Now, this was before Van Peteghem. At this point, he was still in the army. He had no knowledge of this rape. So Dutroux had another accomplice for this one. Van Peteghem did confess that he and Dutroux raped 2 girls in May of 1985. The police have never figured out who these victims were. And then on June 7th, 1985, they kidnapped an 11-year-old girl named Sylvie D. Again, obviously people can figure out we're using the initials of the last name for these victims. Van Peteghem, Dutroux, and Michelle Martin were eating together. Mark said he wanted to have fun that day. Apparently, Michelle wasn't happy because he wanted to use the car.
She should have been unhappy for more than just that reason.
Oh, absolutely. Van Peteghem claimed that he didn't know Dutroux wanted to kidnap a girl until they were actually in the car. Sylvie was out swimming with her father and brother at a local pool, and then she went to a different pool later that day. She walked home alone that evening. The 2 guys drove past her, and it was Peteghem who pulled her into the vehicle. They put tape over her eyes and mouth. Dutroux raped Sylvie and threatened to kill her. He took a photograph of her and said he was going to send it to an American magazine. Van Peteghem said they spoke to Sylvie in French with an American accent to throw her off. They later dropped her off near a hospital. Now, Michelle didn't participate in this kidnapping, but she definitely knew about it, at least after the fact, Gibbs, because at some point, Mark showed her the photograph that he had taken.
I mean, how sick is that? That's your husband coming home and telling you what he did today. Look at this picture.
I was going to say, not just telling you, he's showing you a picture. And Gibbs, the picture contains an 11-year-old girl. There is no mistaking an 11-year-old girl for an adult. Nobody in the world would do that.
Right.
So, that tells me Michelle Martin knew, and for whatever reason, whether she was forced to condone it or whether she condoned it on her own, she went along. And I'm just picturing every spouse listening right now, imagining themselves in that position. That's it. It's over.
Absolutely.
I'm going straight to the police.
Yeah.
I don't care how in love I am. There are certain things you just can't put up with.
And that is one of them.
Some people can get past affairs, right? They can work through stuff like that. But the rape of an 11-year-old girl is not something you're going to be able to work out unless you're just okay with it. And I think that's what turns my stomach.
Sure.
As much as the actual crime itself. Right or wrong, that really does turn my stomach. That this elementary school teacher was like, okay.
Instead of doing what she should have done and protect those kids, protect this child by bringing it up to the authorities.
Sylvie told the police that one of her kidnappers did not agree with raping her. And apparently it was Van Pettingham. He later explained that he thought Sylvie was too young, but he went along with the kidnapping because he said he felt as though he owed something to Marc Dutroux. On October 17th, 1985, 19-year-old Maria V. was walking to a shop in her village. She passed a man who was pretending to urinate against a wall. This man grabbed her by the throat and pushed her into a van, then put tape over her eyes. She was taken to a house and raped. Dutroux confessed this rape to Van Pettingham. Van Pettingham claimed he didn't participate because he was working as a trucker in another country at the time this happened. Maria told the police that there was a second perpetrator. She described this man as a balding man in his 50s. And from what I understand, Gibbs, police have never figured out who this person is. But this is scary, right? This Marc Dutroux was a sexual predator. There's no doubt about that. I think what is also scary, though, is that he was able to get quite a number of people to go along with what he wanted to do. We talked about his wife. We talked about, this Van Pettingham guy. Now we've got some mystery man in his 50s who police have never figured out. Okay, at some point, he had to lay the plan out. And this man had to have said, okay, I'll go along with that. That is frightening to me.
It's extremely frightening that that's the way people think.
If you said any of this shit to me, first I'd kick you right in your cojones.
Yeah.
And then I'd spin you around and kick you in your ass right out my front door.
Absolutely.
Now, I know you would never come up with any sick stuff like this, but you also know that I would never go along with it.
Absolutely not.
How do two people know that they're thinking the same way before the actual idea is said aloud? How do you know that you're going to be received well for something that 99.999% of the people in the world would never even contemplate?
Maybe he just figured out this guy was really weak.
I don't know. But that part always fascinates me. How sick individuals can get other people to go along with their sick ideas. On December 18th, 1985, 15-year-old Elizabeth G. was cycling to school at 7:30 a.m. By this point, Gibbs, Dutroux had started stalking and selecting victims beforehand. It wasn't random like it was before.
Right.
Now, he's really gotten into selecting victims, stalking them. He had picked out Elizabeth a few days before. Michelle Martin drove the van while Dutroux and Van Pettingham grabbed Elizabeth and pulled her inside. They put tape over her eyes. Martin drove to one of Dutroux's properties in Marcinelle. Dutroux rented video equipment. He filmed and photographed Elizabeth. She was told that the rape was an act of revenge against her father. Eventually, they dropped her off near her house that night, and they gave her 500 francs to see a doctor so that she could get a note for school.
It's like they're trying to be sort of good at the end by dropping these girls off at hospitals.
By their house, giving them money, giving them advice. Yeah, I know what you're saying. And it's like, we know you're a 15-year-old girl. we know we've just violated you in the worst possible way, but here, let us give you some money. Go see a doctor. We know you're going to need a note for school so that you don't get in trouble. Are you kidding me? You can't do what you've just done and then think, well, this will make it better.
Sure, yeah.
Nothing's going to make it better.
I mean, at one point they were, like you said, feeding them fruit and chocolates.
Sure.
I mean, crazy.
In 1986, Dutroux and his wife were arrested for abducting and raping 5 young girls. And on April 26th of that year, all 3 of them, Marc Dutroux, Michelle Martin, and Jean Van Peteghem, were convicted by the Bergen Court of Appeal. Dutroux was sentenced to 13 and a half years, Van Peteghem sentenced to 6.5 years, and Michelle Martin got 5 years. Dutroux got extra time for robbing a 58-year-old woman named Jeaning G on June 10th, 1983. Dutroux and 2 accomplices tortured her for 3 hours until she told them where all her money was. One of his accomplices has never been identified. So again, just another person that he was able to get to go along with, whatever he wanted to do. Jean Van Peteghem died on August 27th, 1991 in a motor vehicle accident. According to Michelle Martin, Dutroux was happy that he died because he considered him to be a snitch. Dutroux said that if he had known Van Peteghem was going to confess, he would have killed him. And I don't doubt that for a second.
I don't either.
Marc Dutroux was released on parole in April 1992 for good behavior. Prosecutors and psychiatrists, though, Gibbs, they advised against his release. But apparently he made a good impression on social services and the prison chaplain because he helped clean his grandmother's house during a day of prison leave.
Well, there's a reason to let somebody out.
Sure.
Yeah.
His mother wrote to the prison that he was using his supervised visits to his grandmother's house basically to write up an inventory of her possessions. According to the BBC, her letter said, "I have known for a long time, and with good cause, my eldest's temperament. What I do not know, and what all the people who know him fear, is what he has in mind for the future." But apparently she never received a response to her letter. So this is your own mother writing a letter to the people in charge of your parole, basically saying, my son's a bad egg. You might want to know this, this, and this. You might want to calculate that into your determination for his parole. Normally a mother is got the pom-poms.
Sure, yeah.
And they're writing in letters and they're cheering and saying,
let him out.
My son deserves a second chance. No, not this guy's mom. She was like, none of us know what he's capable of or what he's going to do if he gets let out.
They should have listened to her.
They should have. After Dutroux was released from prison, he was unemployed. He lived on government benefits, but he did have significant income from illegal activities. He began, Gibbs, to manipulate the system to make money from health insurance fraud, theft, insurance fraud, and stock investments. He was still able to maintain his 7 properties in town, as well as rent garages and rooms. He had a number of different bank accounts. He also had enough money to begin constructing a prison cell in an underground cellar in Marcinelle, a suburb of Charleroi. Okay, that's never good when you hear that someone, a private citizen, is constructing a prison cell in their underground cellar. This is real Silence of the Lambs type stuff here. Things are going to go bad very, very quickly.
Freaky.
But you know what doesn't surprise me was that he was able to manipulate the system to make money. I think this guy was a manipulator and a good one. A manipulator of people, that kind of bleeds into, okay, are you able to talk people into things? Are you able to work the system work people to your benefit. Yeah, I think he was.
No, I think he was a good influencer. Still doesn't excuse the people that helped him out. That.
No, I don't think there's any excuse for them because there was nothing in the reporting, at least that I saw, that his wife was forced or, that he threatened to kill her. He may have. I just didn't see it. But obviously he has to get some new accomplices, right? So he found 2 new people that would work with him to kidnap and rape more victims. Bernard Weinstein and Michelle Lelieva, both known criminals. Michelle Martin no longer participated, but even then, Gibbs, it was said she had knowledge of all of her husband's crimes.
Just as bad, man.
Well, just the fact that she stayed with him after the prison sentences and what they were put away for. On June 24th, 1995, 8-year-old friends Julie Lejeune and Melissa Russo were out walking together in Grace Helene near Liège. They disappeared without a trace. The gendarme picked up the case, but they didn't make a whole lot of progress. The girls' parents became outspoken activists for their daughters. A witness saw a red Ford Fiesta at the scene of the kidnapping. He wrote down a partial plate number and he gave that to police, but they said that they couldn't verify it. The plate was later revealed to be in the name of the wife of one of Marc Dutroux's friends. And I think we said up front, Gibbs, right? Police are going to be criticized. The parole system is going to be criticized. And it's things like this that I think people point to after the fact. Okay, we can't verify it. Well, then it later comes out that it was verified. And it came back to the wife of one of this guy's friends. This guy having a criminal record, a very, very shady past.
Not to mention it was a Ford Fiesta.
Well, I think that gives it away right there. If you are driving a Ford Fiesta, you're out to cause trouble. We know that. We've heard from so many Fiesta owners. I'm going to get so many emails from Fiesta owners.
Oh, you will.
But, it's been a running joke for those of you that don't know about the Ford Fiesta. Ford Fiesta drivers are great people. I was just kidding. Don't send me a string of hateful emails. In November 1995, the police searched Dutroux's house because, he was on their radar. He was a suspect. They did not find the girls, despite it being said that they could hear children scream coming from the area. Mark tried to explain it away that these screams were coming from children playing in the neighborhood.
So I find it strange that they could hear screaming and didn't dive deeper into it.
Don't go the extra step to really try to figure out where the screams are coming from. I get you. And I think that's also how later on, when these things come out, people look at the police and say, what were you doing? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? That's how police really get scrutinized in some of these cases because, okay, the guy says what you're hearing is children playing in the neighborhood. Can you not then try to verify that and say, yep, okay, I see them, I hear them. That's what we must have been hearing. They didn't do that. Don't let allergy season slow you down. Get common allergy meds for as little as $15 with GoodRx. So you and your family, pets included, can stop allergy symptoms before they start. GoodRx is free and easy to use. Just search for your prescription on the website or the app, compare prices, and get a free coupon to show your pharmacist. Save at over 70,000 local pharmacies nationwide, including Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Publix, Kroger, and many more. Check GoodRx before every trip to the pharmacy to save up to 80% on both brand and generic medications. And did you know GoodRx rewards you for saving money too? Join GoodRx Rewards today and earn points every time you use a coupon. Remember, GoodRx is not insurance, but works whether you have insurance or not. And it could be your insurance copay price. I've been using GoodRx for years, and I can't tell you how many times I have saved money even with my insurance. Stop allergies before they start and save big on allergy medications this season with GoodRx. Go to goodrx.com/TCAT. That's goodrx.com/TCATT. You know, once the temps start rising, I realized I was back in the same worn out rotation. Same tank, same shorts, same everything. So I gave my daily uniform an upgrade with Quince. Their pieces are easy, elevated, and somehow make me feel more put together without even trying. Like their 100% European linen shorts and dresses from $30. Luxe swimwear, Italian leather platform sandals, and so much more. The best part, everything with Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than what you'd find at similar brands. By working directly with top artisans and cutting out the middleman, Quince gives you luxury without the markup. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. I'm getting ready to stock up on shorts for summer from Quince, and I know they're going to be amazing because everything I've ordered has been of the highest quality, and the prices are amazing. Treat your closet to a little summer glow up with Quince. Go to quince.com/TCAT for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/TCATT to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/TCAT. On December 6, 1995, Dutroux was arrested again for car theft and other charges. He received a 4-month sentence. And that's something that I have an issue with. Now, car theft and whatever other charges that he got, obviously, they don't compare to the things that he had been doing as far as, committing rapes and the sexual assaults and those types of things. But if you already have that record, you're telling me all you get is a 4-month sentence?
Pretty light.
It is. It seems like.
Especially with his known past.
With his known past and the fact that he was let out so early before, you would think it would mean more. On May 28th, 1996, 12-year-old Sabina Dardenne went missing while on her way to school in Tournai. By August, her case went cold. Then on August 8th, 1996, 14-year-old Laetitia Delay vanished after leaving the public swimming pool in Bertrix, Luxembourg. According to the Brussels Times, a witness recalled seeing what they described as a scruffy white van making a terrible engine noise, and they took down a partial license plate.
Let me guess, the van belonged to him.
It belonged to Marc Dutroux, and a background check revealed his previous rape convictions. And I think, to me, Gibbs, the minute that police put all of that together, okay, Marc Dutroux, previous rape convictions, nasty, nasty stuff done in the past, you are driving around in an unmarked white van.
Yeah.
Not to say that people don't have these type of vans, but we also know what a lot of people think about these types of vans. As a kid, sometimes you're taught, run away from those vans.
Yeah, absolutely.
My daughter at 17 years old, if she sees an unmarked van lurking around the neighborhood, she will call me up from the basement. She wants me to take a look at it and give her my opinion of what I think about it. That's how much I've drilled it in, maybe, I guess, into her mind to be on the lookout for these types of vans. So far we've insulted our Ford Fiesta group. Now people who drive vans
right
are probably not happy as well.
Carpet installers everywhere. Like, man, it's just our van so we can get the carpet in the back so we can, install the carpet.
I get it. And some of those contractors don't have any type of signage. I understand that. But they're on to him, right? Based on this partial license plate number. On August 13th, 1996, the police raided Dutroux's properties and they made 3 arrests. Marc, Michel Martin, and accomplice Michel Lelieva. Dutroux was arrested by Judge Jean-Marc Conorata, who quickly became a hero in Belgium. Just 2 days later, on the 15th, Dutroux told the police, I'm going to give you 2 girls. All right, if you're the police, what are you thinking? Well, number 1, we got the right guy. Number 2, how bad is this guy?
Well, pretty bad.
On top of what we already know he's been convicted of, according to the Brussels Times, Michel Desmoulins, who interrogated Dutroux, said it made no sense to immediately confront him with the question of whether he had kidnapped Laetitia Delay. I had to start the conversation first and build a relationship of trust with him. Okay, I get that. I understand that completely. They don't know how many girls this guy either has kidnapped, raped, or still has.
They need to build that rapport.
Yeah, that's what this guy is saying. Dutroux ultimately led the police back to his home in Marcinelle, where the police had searched back in November 1995. He showed them a secret entrance to a cellar where he was hiding 2 missing girls. That day, Laetitia Delay and Sabina Dardenne were rescued from the hidden underground cellar. Sabina had been missing for 80 days and Laetitia for 6. The police also found over 300 videos of child sexual abuse in Dutroux's home.
Wow.
300 videos. This was a very, very nasty, sick individual.
He really was, man.
But he wasn't done talking. He revealed that there were 4 more victims. The next day, on the 16th, Dutroux confessed to kidnapping 2 more girls, 19-year-old Effia Lambrex and 17-year-old Anne Marshall. On the night of August 22nd into the 23rd, 1995, Dutroux abducted Effia and Anne from a resort in Austin. They had attended a hypnosis show while they were on vacation with their parents. Marc admitted to kidnapping and sexually abusing the victims, but he insisted that he didn't murder any of them. He said, Gibbs, he was only the procurer who provided girls to his network of Belgian elites. So really what he's talking about here is child sex trafficking.
That's exactly what they're talking about. That's just as sick and alarming.
Well, I think that sort of thing alarms everyone, right? The fact that it exists, trying to figure out how prevalent it is, and being afraid that it may be more prevalent than we really want to admit. So he's okay with admitting to kidnapping and sexually abusing girls. He's okay with that. What he won't do is admit to murder. So he goes with the line that he handed girls off to this network. Michelle Martin admitted that back in 1995, she knew Julie and Melissa were being held in the cellar without food and water. She visited the house to feed their dogs while Dutroux was in jail. But she said she was too frightened to feed the girls.
So she was too afraid to feed the girls, so she didn't feed them all that time?
Yeah, so again, bad enough that she knows they're there, right? She knows her husband abducted them, had them in this jail cell in the cellar of the home. But to your point, Gibbs, she's got to take care of her dogs, but it didn't seem as though she cared at all what happened to these 2 young girls. And we're going to find out that what happens to them is not good. According to the Belgian news, Michelle later confessed in a May 1997 interview. She said, I remember Marc Dutroux accusing me before the first series of kidnappings in 1985 that I was responsible for him not being able to hit on as many women as he wanted. He thought that other women were less interested in him because he lived with me. I remember we even slept separately for a while at that time. It was at this time that Marc Dutroux told me that he intended to kidnap girls. He told me that kidnapping and raping took less time than seducing them. He said that would also be to my advantage. That way, he had more time to spend with me. And after all, because he did it all for me, I had to help him with the kidnappings. I mean, that's about as twisted logic as you can get. Now, she may have believed what he was telling her. From my point of view, Gibbs, it's absolutely twisted.
It's very twisted.
I could see how he would want to manipulate her into believing this stuff. I just don't understand how a person could think, okay, that makes sense, and I'm willing to do anything for this man. I don't get that. It's hard for me to understand.
Yeah. And she got more time to be with him.
Well, it sounds like to me that this relationship was everything to her. It was so important that she was willing to do basically anything or allow him to do anything.
Is exactly what she did.
To save their marriage, to save their relationship. According to The Guardian, accomplice Michel Lelieva, a drug addict and thief, told the police after his arrest that the girls were kidnapped based on someone else's orders. The suspect, he said, was a man named Jean-Michel Niel, a businessman from Brussels, and what he called a familiar face at sex parties. Lelieva said Dutroux and Niel met in prison in 1989. They created a plot to steal children for Niel's connections. Niel was the middleman who photographed activities and blackmailed child abusers.
So just another disgusting level.
Well, I was going to say, if there's a nasty possibility of something, it seemed like Marc Dutroux found himself in the middle of it.
Sure did.
Now, was that because he sought this stuff out? Yeah, probably. I mean, if you're running around at sex parties with, your eyes wide shut, then you're bound to run into some interesting characters. And I'm using the word interesting in quotes here. The people that he was running into were low down, dirty, nasty child abusers.
Yeah.
And somehow it's like they all gravitated towards each other. But again, I go back to my point, and that's, how do you start these conversations? And how do you even know that this person is going to be remotely interested in the sick stuff that you are?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. How do you fill somebody out for that? How do you lead into that type of conversation?
Yeah. You just can't come out and ask people, are you into sexually abusing young girls or young children? Who asks people that? What are the odds that somebody's going to be into that? I just don't get it. But he was able to do it. On August 17th, 1996, Dutroux led the police to the bodies of Julie Lejeune and Melissa Russo. Their emaciated remains were buried in the garden of a home in Sarre-le-Boucher. The girls had been locked up in an underground cellar for 4 months, while Dutroux served that prison sentence we talked about for auto theft. He asked his wife to feed them, but like we said, she was afraid. The girls ended up dying of starvation. Dutroux later said he put their bodies in a freezer before he buried them. And I keep going back to Michelle because, to me, she is a baffling character in this entire story. You could look at her as having a hand in the death of these two girls. Absolutely.
Look, she's just as bad as he is, in my opinion.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. Now, she didn't abduct them. She didn't sexually abuse them, from what I understand. She knew they were locked up in the cellar. She knew Mark was in prison or in jail or whatever for at least 4 months. What did she think was going to happen to these girls if she didn't step up and give them food?
She can't say she was afraid of Mark, because if she was, that would be the best opportunity, because he's in prison. She could call the authorities. They could come out, find the girls, and that would go against him.
Yeah, now she could have made the argument that she was afraid of him while he had access to her.
Yes.
But you're right. That would have been the perfect opportunity to drop the hammer on him. If she wanted to, I get the feeling that she didn't want to. She loved him in a way where she was willing to look past anything and everything.
Yeah, well, she certainly did, didn't she?
And she did. Melissa's mother, Corinne Rousseau, begged to see her daughter, but the police told her it was against the law. She said she needed to identify the remains, but she was told that Marc Dutroux had already made the identification. Wow, that's rough. Not only is your little girl dead, you can't even see her one last time.
Right. That's a shame.
On September 3rd, 1996, Dutroux led the police to the bodies of Effia Lambrex and Anne Marshall. They were buried on one of his properties in Jumet, near Charleroi. Buried near the girls was the body of Bernard Weinstein, one of Dutroux's former accomplices. An autopsy detected drugs in his system and determined he inhaled dirt before his death, essentially meaning, Gibbs, that he was buried alive. And Dutroux eventually admitted that he killed Weinstein because he had betrayed him. And to me, buried alive is a bad way to go.
I know a lot of people have nightmares about that happening to them.
It's nightmare-inducing stuff.
It really is.
Judge Jean-Marc Canerata believed Michel Niel was the leader of the entire operation. However, just as they were making progress in the investigation, Lelieva suddenly stopped talking. A woman named Regina Louf came forward after Judge Canerata appealed to victims to come to the police. She was actually one of 10 people who spoke to the police. In 1996, she spoke with police in a filmed interview. Regina said that when she was 12 years old, her parents gave her to a family friend, a guy named Tony Vanden Bogart. He had a key to their house. Vanden Bogart picked her up from school and took her away for weekend sex parties where she was often filmed having sex with men. Regina told The Guardian in 2002, it was highly organized, big business, blackmail. There was a lot of money involved. Regina described regular clients at these parties, including judges, one powerful politician, and a banker. She gave their aliases and described all the houses, apartments, and cities where she'd been taken. At some of these parties, Regina witnessed sadism, torture, and even murder. She describes specific victims and how they were killed. Gibbs, she was 12 years old.
Yeah, this is another level.
Stomach turning.
It really is.
The organizer of these parties was Jean-Michel Niel. Niel was a businessman, political lobbyist, and con man. He had connections to many people in Belgium. Regina described him as a very cruel man. She said she had known him since the late 70s. After Dutroux's arrest, when pictures of Niel were published in the news, she said she recognized him right away. Marc Dutroux also organized parties. Regina said Dutroux was a boy who brought drugs, cocaine to these parties. He brought some girls, watched girls. At these events, Niel was sort of a party beast, while Dutroux was more on the side. Niel took part in group sex and had sex with underage girls. Experts examined Regina Louf. They confirmed that she had been molested during childhood. The lead professor noted that it was worth it to investigate her testimony. Okay. Yeah, I think it would definitely be worth it. She seems to have very specific, very incriminating type of knowledge. Now, you still have to investigate it.
Sure.
You have to prove that what she's saying is true. But what are you going to do? Just discount it altogether and not check into it?
Well, she seems to recall a lot of details, so
yeah,
it should be worth diving into.
She also described the murder of a 15-year-old girl named Chrissy. Louf told The Guardian in 2001, it was a sort of bondage. So her legs and her hands and her throat were connected with the same rope. And so when she moved, she strangled herself. She also said that Niel and Dutroux were there that night. Niel took part in the murder while Dutroux watched. Rudy Hoskins, an officer assigned to re-examine that case, believed that Louf did witness the murder. According to The Guardian, it was said she gave us some details that made us think it's impossible to give without having been there at that place, the way the body was found at that time, and the way she described the person who was killed. Okay, that's good. You're checking into it. You're vetting it. You're trying to figure it out. In 1984, Christine Van Heet was found dumped in the grounds of an abandoned mushroom farm on the outskirts of Brussels. The farmhouse has since been demolished. But in 1996, Louf described the details of the farmhouse down to the wallpaper, the sink fixtures, hooks on the ceiling, even the floor plan. Guardian writer Olinka Frankel spoke to the son of the former owner in 2002. He showed her pictures of the house and the mushroom factory. He said, "I have never met Regina Louf. All I know is that she could not have described the house as well as she did unless she'd been there. It was two houses joined together in a strange way. It would be impossible to invent it."
So her story's being backed up.
It sure sounds like it.
Yeah. And that's scary because we know she's not lying.
Well, I think you can make the inference that if she's not lying about that, she's most likely not lying about the other stuff as well. Frankel wrote, "When I put this evidence to Anne Thiele, prosecutor general of Liège, in overall charge of the Dutroux affair, she gave me a shrug and repeated the official line in Belgium that Louf is a fantasist and has invented everything." So I think you can see based on that authorities did not believe Regina Louf. Again, maybe one of those things where, okay, the public is going to criticize after the fact.
Sure.
Why did you not believe her? Why did you dismiss her so summarily?
Was it because somebody with a lot of power attended those parties?
Well, I think it's a great point. If you go back to what she said, there were people in power there, right? Political figures, people that she recognized. Okay, what do powerful people not want to come out? Obviously, anything that would damage their reputation. This type of sex party, which involved underage girls, would obviously do that. And we know powerful people have a way of getting what they want, especially if their power comes from position.
Exactly.
In politics or, within the justice system itself. In October 1996, Judge Conarate was taken off the case because he attended a fundraising dinner for the victims and their families. He was accused of a conflict of interest. Gino Russo, Melissa's father, told The Guardian it was like spitting on the grave of Julie and Melissa. The victims' parents and citizens of Belgium were outraged. Conarate had multiple additional suspects arrested before he was fired. It really seemed, Gibbs, as though he was making progress at exposing this network of criminals at the time that he was taken off the case. They got people fired up to the point where on October 20th, 1996, over 300,000 people marched on the Palace of Justice in Brussels to protest.
That's a major protest.
That's a lot of people. But I think you can see why they were so fired up. This is a guy who actually seems like he's on the right track, and you're going to fire him over what? Attending a fundraising dinner for the victims? Okay. Judge Van Espen oversaw Christine Van Heet's case for 12 years. A Belgian journalist revealed a relationship between the judge, Michel Nioul, and his wife. Van Espen represented Nioul's wife when he was an attorney. Van Espen's sister was the godmother of Nioul's child. Van Espen was not forced to resign due to some conflict of interest. Unlike Judge Conarate, he chose to resign in early 1998. I mean, if we're talking about a conflict of interest, I think that one qualifies much more so than the other one. Judge Conarate was replaced by Jacques Langlois, who spent several years in conflict with public prosecutor Michel Bourlet. In spring 1997, the special team of police officers who interviewed the witnesses was dismissed. At this point, the police had verified many elements of Louf's story. A new team was assigned to reread Louf's testimony. The press was told that the old team was fired because they manipulated evidence, something that they have always denied. Up until this point, Louf was only known as X1, but the media leaked her name. Before Dutroux's trial, almost 440,000 pages of evidence were leaked to the media, exposing important and private information.
I'm guessing that's not going to be good for anybody.
No, and especially not good if you're one of these powerful people doing something that you shouldn't be doing. That could be real bad for you.
Oh, yeah.
The government TV station RTBF began a campaign to prove that Dutroux was what they called an isolated pervert who kidnapped girls alone. They said there was no network of co-conspirators. Niul was innocent and Louf was a liar. They produced one news program that portrayed her parents as victims of defamation. This news program failed to report that her parents had already confessed that they had allowed Tony Vanden Bogart to have a key to their home and access to their daughter. Vanden Bogart also admitted that he had a relationship with Louf.
A 12-year-old.
A 12-year-old girl. Well, pretty hard to claim defamation when you've already admitted to the things that Louf said about you.
Exactly.
It's not defamatory, number one, if it's true.
Sure.
No, and it's true if you've already admitted it.
Yeah.
But judges announced that Louf would not be called as a witness in any future trials. She and the other witnesses who spoke to Judge Conradi would not testify, and their testimony had been deemed worthless.
Worthless. Wow.
So, if you're a conspiracy theorist, your mind is in overdrive at this point because there's a lot going on here. It screams of cover-up. It screams of powerful people influencing what ultimately goes on in the trial of Marc Dutroux and others, because if you're looking at it that way, they don't want to be implicated. But I think this is where we need to stop part one. In part two, we'll cover a parliamentary inquiry into the case. There are some mysterious witness deaths, and we will get into Marc Dutroux's infamous trial. And it is infamous. It's fascinating.
Very fascinating.
So don't miss part two of Marc Dutroux. It's not a full wrap-up, Gibbs, because we have a second episode,
Sure.
but you'd have to call this guy a monster.
No doubt.
He's a predator. He preyed on young girls.
Yeah.
If you put in the effort to build a prison cell in your cellar, you've already been convicted of rape and other, sexual assault type charges of young girls. There's very little doubt about what your plans for that prison cell are.
Yeah, I think your intentions are well known.
Your wife seems to know about it.
Yeah.
And we obviously know what happened. He got caught up in this car theft ring. He wasn't able to take care of these girls, give them food. Obviously, his wife said she was too afraid to do it. These girls ended up dying.
Yeah.
But then you have kind of a bigger mystery that surrounds this case, right? Who all was involved? Who all else was involved? What levels of society did this thing reach? And did those people use their influence to manipulate things as time went along, right? This judge is getting too close. All right, we got to figure out a way to get him out of here. There's just a lot going on, and there's more to come in part two. But that's it for part one of Marc Dutroux. We got some voicemails, Gibbs. You want to check those out?
Let's hear them.
Hi Mike, hi Gibby. My name's Helen. I'm from Nottinghamshire in England, the home of Robin Hood. I'm a really big fan of the show and particularly like your guys' banter. I mean, you really, really bounce well off each other and you can tell you're really good friends. I do get a few funny looks as I'm walking my dog with my AirPods in and laughing to some of your guys' jokes. Anyway, I've not really got any recommendations, but just keep doing what you're doing. Keep your head on a swivel and all that. Stay safe, keep your own time ticking.
Love it. Voicemail from the land of Robin Hood.
Robin Hood.
I talked on Patreon this week, Gibbs, about how I'm really into British television, British movies. I've really got a kind of a British fetish thing going on.
You really do. You're kind of into that. British.
I don't think fetish is the right word,
No,
but
I wouldn't have used that word either.
I know I might have used that incorrectly, but there are shows and movies that, in my younger days, I would not have watched.
Yeah.
But, as I've gotten older, really gotten into some of these movies, from other countries. And there's a lot of British stars these days. A lot of them use their American accent to fool us.
They do.
And come over here and we think they're American. Turns out they're English, but they're great actors.
Yeah. We should watch Monty Python, man.
I've seen Monty Python.
Oh, have you?
Oh yeah. I love Monty Python.
Some old good stuff.
Yeah. I love that. But lately I've watched like The Imitation Game. I'm really into World War II stuff.
Okay.
Churchill movie with Gary Oldman.
Yeah.
That was good. Oh, I watched The Kingsman the other day, the new one.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, that was actually really good.
Oh, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. That's kind of my thing right now.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Gino from Ohio again. I'm just trying to figure out what kind of a POS would actually kill a child and leave it in a box somewhere. It's just, I can't fathom that at all. I just wanted to, I don't understand it. Anyway, guys, keep your head on a swivel, keep your own time ticking, and have a good day.
All right. Well, we always appreciate Gino calling in. That was probably meant for Unsolved. I'm assuming he's talking about the Boy in the Box episode.
Yeah, what a POS.
Yeah. Whoever would do something like that is a POS. I mean, that's a great description. But to answer the question, how could someone do that? I can't do it. It's what we're always trying to do.
Right. Trying to figure out what's in their mind.
And how can they do things that we can't even imagine being able to make the conscious decision? Yes, this seems like a good idea. This seems like something I should do. When for most of us, everything in our body screams the exact opposite. I would never do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to hurt someone. I don't want to see someone get hurt.
Just like this episode we did today.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You can't make sense of things that don't make sense, if that makes sense.
It makes sense.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. This is Caitlin Smith. I have contacted you a couple times on email, and I am from Colorado originally. I live in Iowa right now as my husband's going to medical school. I just wanted to say that I really, really enjoy the podcast. I started listening on criminology and immediately was hooked. And then I followed Fergie over to TCAT and immediately fell in love with Gibby. And I've always been in love with Fergie. So I am team both of you, but maybe I'm a little bit more team Fergie. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell because you're both great. Anyways, I just wanted to say that you guys are both awesome, and I'm also really nervous right now because it's kind of awkward just leaving a voicemail right away instead of I don't know, hearing it ring more than once, I guess. I don't know what it is, but keep up the great work. And I also wanted to let you know I will be sending a piece of art to you guys that I have been working on for several months. So I'm really excited to send that to you. And yeah, so thank you and keep your own time ticking. Bye.
Wow, another piece of art in the studio.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to see what it is. We'll hang it up in the studio. I didn't think she sounded nervous at all. I thought she did great.
Yeah.
So kudos to you.
And more team me than you.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, she said you than me, didn't she?
Yeah, why do you always have to put a tick on your scoreboard? Why do you keep a scoreboard?
You have the bigger scoreboard.
No, I don't have any scoreboard. It's right behind you. Everybody can see it on video.
I've got the...
If you're on Patreon.
No desk, no smaller scoreboard, smaller chair, smaller microphone.
A man keeps a scoreboard on how many people say they're Team Gibby. That is wrong. We had no mailbag this week, Gib. So that's it for another episode of True Crime All the Time. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
At the turn of the 20th century, rapid industrialization, urbanization, and political corruption were ravaging America. But soon, President Theodore Roosevelt and a diverse group of reformers known as progressives would fight back. Hi, I'm Lindsey Graham, the host of Wondery's podcast, American History Tellers. We take you to the events, times, and people that shaped America and Americans, our values, our struggles, and our dreams. In our latest series, we explore the Progressive Era, which came to be defined by Teddy Roosevelt and others who believed in a strong, active government that worked on behalf of all Americans rather than the privileged few. As the United States entered the 20th century, these progressives hoped to steer the nation in a bold new direction, to launch an era of reform to restore power to the people. Follow American History Tellers on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. Experience all episodes ad-free and be the first to binge the newest season only on Wondery Plus. Join Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. Start your free trial today.